Chapter 13, Sample Problem Number 1. A mass is oscillating up and down on the end of a spring. 3 students are discussing the acceleration of the mass. Aileen says, I think the acceleration of the mass will be largest when it's at the end of its oscillations turning around. That's where the spring is stretched the most. Bridget says, no, I don't see how that can be. Its velocity is 0 at that point, so its acceleration has to be 0 also. And Chandra says, I disagree. The acceleration is largest when the mass is halfway between the middle and the end, because that's where its speed is changing the most. So if we sort of walk through these one by one, let's start with Aileen. Aileen is basically saying that the spring is stretched the most, so the force, which we know is proportional to the stretch, is maxed when the position is the amplitude, or minus the amplitude if we worry about absolute value, at either of those ends. And since the acceleration is the force over the mass, it's also maxed at either end. And she's correct. So, correct for Aileen. How about Bridget? She says that the velocity is 0 at that point, and therefore the acceleration must be 0, but that is in fact not a generic truth. For instance, as a counterexample in a whole different case, if you throw something up and then it comes back down, it's at rest here, but it's always accelerating. In fact, we know the velocity is changing because it was plus and becomes minus. Or in this thing, it's about to turn around, it was moving down, and now it's about to go up. So there is some change in speed, some change in velocity, so there must be some acceleration. So Bridget is incorrect in thinking that 0 acceleration has to result when you have 0 velocity. In fact, it often does not. And then Chandra says the acceleration largest when the mass is halfway between the middle and the end, because that's where the speed is changing the most, but that turns out not to be true if we sort of think of that the velocity looks something like a negative sine curve. Then here is not the steepest. We have much steeper changes at the start of a sine curve than at the halfway point. So not true for Chandra either. The only person who has the right answer is Aileen.